So straight to that top story. On the third day of the so-called House of Horrors trial, Josef Fritzl has changed his pleas, now saying he is guilty of all charges, guilty for rape, for incest, for enslavement, and finally guilty as well for murder. These charges following the revelation that the now 73-year-old retired engineer kept one of his daughters, Elizabeth, locked up in the cellar of a family home as other members of the same family, including his wife and other children, even lodgers at certain points, apparently lived obliviously upstairs. Guilty of effectively using his own daughter as a sex slave for some 24 years, chaining her up at various points, giving her no access to light or proper ventilation. Guilty of having 7 children with her as well. One of those babies died after 3 days after childbirth, hence the murder charge. The prosecution had argued that if the baby had received medical treatment in time, he would have survived. Now, he had previously entered a not guilty plea, though now he has retracted that. Incidentally, one expert told the court that he risked reoffending and for that reason should be put in a psychiatric institute. Well, let's go to our correspondent now, Angela Yeo, who's been covering this trial. She's just heard the change of pleas and she joins us now on the line from St. Polton. Angela, then, so he entered a guilty plea. What was the reaction in court when he did that?
Well, it was, of course, a change from what he had originally pled, and it was a turning point, as you say, in this trial. And we've got to remember that his recognition of all charges that he faces comes after he had watched 11 hours of video testimony from his daughter Elizabeth, and testimony on what he did over the course of those 24 years when she was locked away in the cellar. So we can imagine that maybe it has something to do with that. He very calmly admitted that he was guilty as charged, and that means that he could face a sentence. He could face life in prison. Previously the heaviest sentence he could have faced was up to 15 years in jail for rape, but now he could face up to life in jail. So we have heard from the psychiatrist that he still has a severe personality disorder. He could still be dangerous, and that means that he may be locked away forever if he's found guilty.
Okay, now surely this does make the prosecution's case a lot easier, given the fact that he has actually entered guilty pleas. You were in the court. The proceedings were open to the public on this, the third day. They weren't open to the public, I know, on the press, rather, on Tuesday. What was indeed, though, the reaction when he changed his plea?
Well, it was, he was in court today without the blue folder. We could see his face. He sat there emotionless, expressionless throughout the psychiatrist's examination or giving details of his psychological profile. The other journalists in the room, they were surprised, and the jury who's there to decide whether he's guilty or not, there's not that much. When the accused admits guilt for all charges, then it makes their decision perhaps a little easier. But no real big reaction inside the courtroom, though just murmurs of that this was a big change for the trial.
And lastly, Angela, do we know why indeed he did change his plea?
Well, we know that in court yesterday, when it wasn't open to the public, he did watch the remainder of the 11 hours of video testimony from his daughter. We have no confirmation yet as to why he changed his plea, but we can perhaps imagine that being confronted for the first time with his daughter's testimony and seeing his daughter via video for the first time since they were released may have had an impact on him.
Okay. Angela Yeo talked to us there from the courthouse where that trial has happened. Just to remind you then, Fritzl has now changed his plea, pleading guilty.